Hey, it's Molly. Welcome back to my channel as we take a look at the chart for the Sagittarius new moon happening on December 1st, 2024 at 1:20 a.m. Keep in mind that this new moon could be happening for you on Saturday, November 30th, depending on your time zone. This new moon is occurring at 9 degrees of Sagittarius, 32 minutes in your chart, where the sun and the moon are conjunct and begin a new lunar cycle together. In your chart, you would identify where you have 9 degrees of Sagittarius by house placement, as this house is where that new start is supported and where you're being guided to be very intentional, where you're being asked here to look at what do you want to change, evolve, or understand from a higher perspective. This is the domain of Sagittarius. It is the seeker, the explorer, the philosopher. This is the part of you that is ready to open up to more information, more guidance, or perhaps a new adventure that is right on time for your next steps and to go higher. Sagittarius wants to move and often can do so mentally. Doesn't have to be physically, but there is strong movement here that you could be feeling pulsing through you or inspiring you to grab a new book off the shelf, to explore something you've never done before. Sagittarius is about experiences. What new experiences are calling to you that you want to trust and open up to? So with this new beginning, there can be an optimism and a joy, a sense of possibility, as well as excitement to move. Now we'll find here that the sun and the moon are trining this Mars at 5 degrees of Leo, 57 minutes, so nearly 6 degrees of Leo. And this Mars is going to station retrograde in only a few days after this new moon. December 6th is when Mars is stationing retrograde and will travel back to 17 degrees of Cancer into February of next year. So this Mars is still direct, but as he's moving slowly, there's a sense here of looking at what you want, really giving yourself a longer term perspective around acquiring it or having it in some way or creating it. But Mars in Leo is determined. There's a long-term determination here that is important to note, where there may not be immediate gratification. So if you look at where this Sagittarius energy is pointing you up higher, beyond what you can see, takes you off the earth, above the horizon, to go further. This trine to Mars in Leo can give you that fortitude and determination to stay the course into the new year. Because again, this Mars isn't active right now. And so there could be something you're sitting with, you're slowly integrating, feeling into, but you can sense that it has long-term potential and that the creative journey is opening up or going to open up over this lunar cycle. So it's interesting to have this trine to typical Mars and Leo, which can be quite forceful and passionate, but it's tempered here. It's tempered. So put that into your expectations here, where as Sagittarius opens you up, give yourself a longer term plan or a longer term journey to bring this energy to fruition. And then the other part of this story that relates to a similar theme is that the sun and the moon are receiving a square from Saturn at 12 degrees, nearly 13 degrees of Pisces. Saturn is now direct, and the square is impacting where the sun and the moon want to go, because Saturn is at a further degree point, 12, almost 13 degrees here. It means that right after this new moon, the moon is going to exactly square Saturn, and then the sun is going to square Saturn 3 days later, and that's going to feel like a halt to this new beginning and these intentions. And I'm interpreting this to mean that, again, there isn't going to be immediate satisfaction to the expectations here of the Sagittarius energy, which can have very big expectations. You know, you're going to have the best day ever. It's going to be the most amazing experience in the history of humanity. The Sag energy exaggerates, and that can be exciting and motivating, but here you've got a halt from the Saturn in Pisces that's adjusting those expectations and removing the biggest, brightest version of the ideal. And Saturn brings it down to Earth typically, but Saturn in Pisces is working with both your human and spiritual self, and is asking you to look back on previous experiences and what have you learned before about the same habit or the same level of giant expectations. What have you already learned about this that you know, and your soul knows, your energy knows, and you were trying to override it? The Sagittarius method, just override it. Just do it anyways. Just have the last round. Just have do it. Just do it. Nothing to lose. You only live once. And then Sagittarius takes you to the tattoo parlor to get a YOLO tattoo. And here's Saturn saying, you've been down this path before. You know how the energies work. So integrate your own wisdom here, that if it isn't the best thing ever, and if that tattoo is applied upside down, you can't say you didn't know, because you were too ungrounded by the excitement of it all. And Saturn is asking you to check in here with how the world really works, the lessons you've had before, and to be wiser. And that's actually something that both the Pisces and Sagittarius energies want. Be wiser. So as this new moon gets started and the energy takes off, and then there's something that comes to a standstill, you're going to be like, oh, I knew this. You could even have a sense of, I felt this was coming. I felt it. And so how to regulate this is with patience, and to not let this take over, but rather check in first with the Saturn and Pisces and listen. Be receptive. Be receptive to the information that you're already feeling. And then it brings us to this Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius at 20 degrees. And this Mercury is interesting because Mercury is on Team Sag and could be egging you on and overriding the need to slow down, because Mercury in Sag doesn't want to slow down. Why would we slow down? What's the point of that? No, let's just go faster and see what else we can do. And by the way, it's going to be hilarious no matter what happens. We'll have good jokes and good stories to tell. That's how Mercury in Sag works. But this Mercury in Sag, even though it can be the trickster, there's also a wiser part of you that says, you know what? Let's just leave it open here and know that it probably isn't going to go as planned. because that's what this Saturn square is saying. But we're going to figure it out anyways. And that's the best way to use this Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. We're going to figure it out. There's going to be a new option. There's going to be a really pretty design you can put over that messed up tattoo. It's going to be a great story, and we'll laugh about you forever. So keep that in mind, that humor can be wonderful right now, to keep it lighthearted, to not take things too seriously, which is something that Sagittarius can do well as it's kind-spirited and not mean-spirited. Now, there is a grand trine here in the fire, as the sun and the moon in Sag trine Mars in Leo, and they trine this North Node at 4 degrees of Aries, finishing up the journey in Aries, which ends in January, that's been directing you to your higher potential, opening you up to who you are now, and to hear the call of the soul of what you want and who you really are now, which opposes the South Node in Libra, which is not on this chart, and is pulling you away from what other people expect of you, or how you defined yourself based on others, or in relations with others. This is about the relationship with yourself and fully owning what you want now and what you want next. And so this fire grand trine is movement and is excitable. Now, it was stronger before the new moon, when the sun was at 4 and 5 degrees of Sagittarius. But the energy is still present here, still carrying you forward. But it comes back to the Saturn saying, but remember what you've already been through. Remember the lessons you've learned, the mistakes you've made, the patterns you've already lived out, and don't repeat that going forward. So the new here is in being wiser, staying adaptable to what unfolds if details are missed with Mercury retrograde, to maintain a lightness, and to see how much you've grown, as well as how you are growing. So Mercury is opposing Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. That opposition, it actually lasts for most of December, which brings in more extremes. Extreme stories, bigger developments, bigger corrections. Keep in mind, with both of these retrograde, it's like what you thought was a little boo-boo can turn into a bigger ordeal. So use the best of Mercury in Sag and Jupiter in Gemini, which is talk it out, verify details, verify specifics, to the point where it could feel annoying, but you want to make sure you're covering your bases now so that it isn't a bigger ordeal later on in the month. And as this Mercury stays in opposition to Jupiter, amplifying everything, probably even making it harder to get some peace and quiet or to settle the mind, they are both this Mercury and Jupiter approaching an exact T-square to Saturn. And that will be exact December 24th at 14 degrees. And Mercury is going to be in on that talk too. So there's serious matters that this Saturn is holding. And it could be what's slowing down this Sagittarius new start, because the end of the month On December 30th, we have the Capricorn new moon that sextiles the Saturn. So basically by the end of the month, the shifts and changes that are unfolding here are going to be more evident and more clear, more serious. So it's sort of like have fun now and enjoy the best of the season, celebrations, gatherings, fun with friends, adventures. But you could sense that there's a part of you that is taking matters seriously. I don't mean this to sound like a downer. It's more like there's big changes underway that we can't ignore. And that's what we're feeling. And there's a part of us, it's like being in a holding pattern as well. Being in a holding pattern. And I'm also noticing this Chiron at 19 degrees at Aries retrograde, which stations direct the end of the month, December 30th, and how this Chiron is trining Mercury and sextiling Jupiter. But what I think is most important is that this Chiron at 19 degrees of Aries is hanging out conjunct the April 8th Aries solar eclipse. That was that really big eclipse that came across the US and is holding space for what you've been healing this year or on a journey, a personal journey around discovering yourself, new discoveries of who you really are. And the beneficial trine to this Mercury and to Jupiter is bringing in new insights to sit with, to process and think through. All three are retrograde. This is an internal self-reflection around who you're becoming and what you're owning in yourself now. And there could have been some kind of challenge or pushback with this Venus at 23 degrees of Capricorn squaring Chiron, where this Venus is in charge of what she wants, where she's going. And yet there's new parts of her coming forward that she has to acknowledge, even though it's going to change the plan. And Venus in Capricorn likes her plans, likes to move ahead with what she's already mapped out and strategized. And so there could be something here that you feel like it's jolting where what you had mapped out. So this Chiron is softer. But the Chiron energy is also breaking up the tension between Mercury opposing Jupiter and both of those approaching the T-square here to Saturn. So this Chiron is important and stays at 19 degrees of Aries until the middle of February. Be kind to yourself, be gentle, be softer, be allowing. Healing takes time. The process of rediscovery takes time. So this can help you return to yourself with a loving perspective, even if your mind and internal chatter are saying otherwise. So overall, this Sagittarius new moon is taking you higher with an answer, an understanding, information, a perspective, asking you to integrate it, bring it into that solar plexus and the heart, which is how the Leo energy is in a healthy expression when it connects to the heart. Be wiser. Be wiser about what you've already lived through and experienced. Be compassionate too with what you're now learning about yourself and accepting. And then in 2 weeks, at the Gemini full moon, Mercury stations direct on the same day of the Gemini full moon. That'll be December 15th, and I'll have that video for you out shortly. But that's when the clarity occurs. That's when there's that new understanding of whatever this new moon is opening up for you. An answer will arrive with that Gemini full moon in 2 weeks. So I hope this gives you some beneficial ways of navigating the first half of December here. Finding the joy in the experience, bringing in laughter, telling crazy stories, and maybe staying away from the tattoo parlor. I'll see you back here soon with a new video. Thank you so much for your comments, your likes, and your subscribes. Oh, and be sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my content or sharings. Thank you so much.